Hello, testing, testing, 1, 2. Hello, testing, testing, 1, 2. Hi, everyone. What is that saying? Oh, that doesn't matter. Hi, everyone. This is Madelinemaye, she, her. And I'm going to try and do more like regular streams, not just the Cootie Cast that I've been doing monthly with Jess. I also want to do some other, just projects and little whatevers as well, along with probably like more gaming and things like that. I also want to start making more videos like this where I kind of explain the process of how everything kind of works, and kind of give you a little bit of insight into how I do things over here, and maybe that'll help you. So I'm just going to talk. Again, I don't know how many views or watchers I'm going to get here, but trying to get my mic in. You can all hear. Look at my mic. Yeah, I don't know how much anyone's going to watch this, or at least live, but I hope you can come back to this and kind of look through what I do. Maybe it helps you out. Maybe it doesn't. If it does, great. If it doesn't, also great. We're great. Everyone's cool. Everyone's cool. So yeah, I guess my viewers voted on having me explain how I come up with the ideas for the video essays and write the video essays. So yeah, first off, I do want to again say, I'm probably going to be saying this a couple of times, I don't think this is the most efficient or best use of my time when it comes to writing video essays. If it was, maybe I'd get more done at more times than I do. But since I have not, but at the same time, this is really the only way that I have found that kind of consistently works for me. So maybe if you're someone who has a similar neurodivergency, similar scale on the spectrum that I do, maybe this is something that you can adapt for yourself. I'll just keep going. If we get viewers, we do. If we don't, we don't. Let's ask questions. I guess for an example, I am going to talk about my Hell of a Boss video essay, which was my first one, because I do think it's at least an interesting enough story to kind of explain how my thought process and writing process works, and how I hopefully see it all to completion. So what's interesting about, to start off, what's interesting about that Hell of a Boss video is that I started it many years ago. It was originally going to be a Has-Been Hotel video. I've been thinking about making that video, or I was thinking about making that video for as long as the pilot for Has-Been Hotel has been out, because I saw the pilot and something about it just really stuck with me. Like, I had no prior understanding or experience with Vivzy Pop or her content. I just knew this really big indie animation was kind of blowing up, and I'm a big fan of animation. If you've seen my channel, I love cartoons. So I checked it out, and I remember thinking, this is like really well animated, especially for an indie project, but there was just something about it that didn't sit right with me. And I was having a hard time explaining exactly what that was. So I hadn't even thought about a channel yet. This is even like pre-transition. This is how long ago I had this idea. When did that pilot come out for Has-Been Hotel? Let me look that up. Has-Been Hotel pilot. 2019. So I was about like half a year from coming out. This is also coming out to myself. That I had this, like, I don't know, something about this show kind of sparked this interest, and I think that's probably my step one. When I make a video essay, I try to pick something that I'm like genuinely interested in. It would be amazing if that also like had a good place with the algorithm, if they also enjoyed it. If the computer lords also enjoyed it, that would be cool. But mainly, I really have to give two shits about what I'm talking about. So this Hazbin Hotel pilot, like I said, I thought was fascinating. But you know, I had an idea. I think I wrote like 7 or 8 pages of a script that was just the Hazbin Hotel pilot, and then a little bit about the Hell of a Boss pilot that came out soon after. And for a while, that kind of was all it was. Obviously, we know what happened in 2020. Everything went into shutdown, and I came out as trans a little bit later, so I got distracted. I had other things to think about, so I kind of put this to the side, put my YouTube dreams on hold. In the meantime, I was just kind of working on my own stuff, trying to get myself as a human being settled and figured out. And by the time I was feeling like good enough that I was slightly confident enough in how I looked and how I was presenting myself, because I was going through the trans jitters, the egg first year syndrome, which is like all this stuff just not working or going wrong. Plus just taking forever to get this project done. I think I ended up doing it after facial feminization surgery. So yeah, I've had this idea for a while before I even kind of started reworking on the project, because once I was comfortable with my transition and feel like, okay, I can do personal projects again, I came back to the Hazbin Hotel pilot video essay that I had, and I realized that it wasn't really relevant anymore. This is also before the Hazbin Hotel show premiered. I think it was announced at this time, but it wasn't actually shown. But what was shown was quite a few episodes of the Hell of a Boss show, and I figured that since there was more content and more to kind of work with the Hell of a Boss video, that would be a much more interesting video than Hazbin Hotel, which is only a pilot, and it's, you know, it's hard to gauge the quality of a show based on a pilot, which is literally just that. It's a test animation to, you know, kind of convince people, hey, is this a good idea? It's to get investors involved. And I, again, did not think either of the pilots were very good, but I thought, well, since we have like a full, I think there were like 7 to 9 episodes of Hell of a Boss released at that time, I'm like, we got a really strong chunk of material here that I can look at. So I kind of came up with the topic. It was something that I was interested in. It's something that I'd been kind of brewing in my head. So I kind of just thought about it for many years. I would talk to my friends about it, say, hey, I have this thought about this cartoon, and they would give me, you know, a little support and stuff like that. But let's get to the actual process of writing the video essay. So generally, my step one is like what I said. I try to pick an idea that I'm interested in. Like, I'm still very new and in the YouTube space, and with my own projects that I haven't really ran out of ideas yet. I know that will probably happen, but what I do to get ideas is just experience things, like watch stuff, read stuff, until like something kind of hits me in a way that I want to talk about. And it really is like that simple for me. Like, I'm not really looking at algorithms or what I should be talking about. I just will see something or I'll think about something, and if it's strong enough of an emotion, or if it creates strong enough of an emotion in my head, then I figure I want to talk about it. Besides that, there's like quirks that I just have as a person. In addition to that, I personally don't like to make videos about things that have been widely, I almost said wildly, maybe widely talked about. Like if I, and this is kind of something that I've always had a problem with, I always like unique, new takes. Like I hate kind of repeating what other people have done. Not that I don't. I mean, not that it's something that'll never happen, but it's more just like, if I have an idea for a video and I see someone else has made that video, I just don't particularly want to make it. But, you know, obviously there's also exceptions to every rule. So, but for the most part, like with this Hell of a Boss video that I'm talking about, I thought I had an interesting take that I didn't see other people talking about, and I really wanted to get it out there, so I started to write, and that's kind of how I picked that. All my video essays are that, basically. I watch a piece of media, whether it's Beau is Afraid. It's another video essay I did. That film made me have a panic attack, so I wanted to know why it did that, and that became the structure of that essay. Or with Fantastic Beasts, the video essay, I kind of had this thought about the wizarding world and that movie. Like, I always thought the original was one of the worst films I'd ever seen, but nobody was really going that far with it, and I'm like, I want people to know that I think this is the worst thing ever made, and I want to explain why. It's more than just a middling film. It's actually a very bad film. So sometimes it's not the best case. It's not always altruistic. But that's how I come up with an idea. Just something hits me and I want to talk about it. It really is that simple. And because I don't do this for a living, I don't really have any time frame or things that I feel like I have to do. That might change if this channel becomes something that makes money. I hope it doesn't change my process too much, but you know, I also get it. It could very well. But let's get to the actual process. All right. This is what I do. I don't, again, the most important thing to understand when it comes to creating any kind of project, art, whatever, is that you just need to find something that gets you to make it. It could be completely different. It could be completely the same, but you kind of have to just figure out the little stupid things you got to do that get you to create. And that's going to look different from everybody. I've seen all of these books, and I've been to conferences of people telling you, like, how to do this, how to, you know, none of that, I think, at least for me, none of that really helped. What helped was just kind of figuring out what I like to do. So when I have an idea, like, let's say the Hell of a Boss, it's the most rough. I was like, I want to talk about Hell of a Boss. I think this thing is going on, which I think at the time I was like, this feels really strange. This feels kind of sexist. It feels kind of homophobic. Right, that's really it. I'm just vibing with the show, and I want to make something about that. So the first thing I'll do is I will hand write things. So I brought a example. I like to write in 5-star notebooks. I like them because they're strong, they're big. I like to get the college ruled one. There's nothing on that one. This is a newer one, so I don't think too much has been written. Oh, there's some stuff. So you can see there's some stuff written in there. I like to use things like this. I tried using Moleskine or some of the fancier ones, but I found that for me personally, because the notebook was so fancy, I would start to feel anxious about writing in them, because I would be like, oh, what if I write something bad? Like, I'll upset the notebook. Which is so weird and, like, kind of insane to think about, but that's where it was. Like, the notebook was so nice and so expensive, it, like, stressed me out. I couldn't write. So since then, I started to go with the 5-star, single binder, college ruled, any kind of college-ruled single binder. I just happen to like 5-star because they stay together a lot better. But I like this because it's cheap. I mean, not like the cheapest, but it's like cheap enough where I can kind of just buy a bunch of these at like a CVS or something, which is generally what I do. And I don't feel as bad about writing complete garbage because the first thing I ever write is always complete garbage because that's kind of how writing is. So I like to just have something like this. And what I'll do is I showed a little bit of it. This is for everything that I do. This is not just, oh yeah, I remember doing that. There's some weird things in here. What I'll do is I will literally just do bullet points. I won't do outlines, which I probably should, but that's not how my brain works. I'll just have random things in here. I need to keep this more organized. Wow. Sometimes, like, I have this other thing where, like, I'll start off with something. This is, a part of a pilot that I've written and I'm working on the pitch for. As you can see, there's nothing written here. Generally, if I start to write something and I don't get anything done that day, my superstitious brain says that's a bad page, so we never use it again. If it was a good page, I would write more for it. Okay, here we go. So this is an example of the video that I have coming out, which is going to be my analysis on the Matrix and why I think it's a bad trans allegory. And by bad, I mean not that it doesn't exist, but that I think it has a harmful message for trans people when used that way. So, in case you're wondering, so basically I'll just do a simple title here. You can kind of see my handwriting's atrocious, but I can write nice if I try. I learned. Shout out to Jess, my co-host, for helping me with that. And I'll just do this. This is it. I'll just write down every thought I have. I'll do a little spacing and things like that. What doesn't matter what the thought is, good or bad, I'll just put it down, write everything. What's interesting about this is that I generally never return to this book. Like, once I write it in here, I don't really ever open up this notebook. And the reason is because I just kind of want to get every possible thought I have out there. And I think the reason of that, maybe that's because I have ADHD. I'm not just saying that like in a TikTok way. I was diagnosed with it recently. And, you know, mild autism of the similar diagnosis. So I find that I have so many ideas in my head. I just want to write as much down as possible until like I can't think of anything else to write. This is like a big process. I'll do this for a while, generally. If I'm just coming up with an idea for something, I will do this for a bit. Or I'll do sketches if I don't want to focus that day. I'll draw little doodles. Yeah, sometimes I'm more organized with this. But here it's just kind of a bunch of random things. Basically, I just want a stress-free reason to just write whatever I can, that I never have to look at it again. It can be as embarrassing, it can be as stupid as anybody wants, but that's what I like to do. Okay, so once I do that for like a really long time, I start to think about what the video essay could look like. I start to formulate a thesis, or maybe more accurately, a hypothesis, and I will just start writing into a Word document, Google Docs, whatever you want. Just as much as I can, as well written as I can, for just literally typing first thoughts into a Word document, and I'll end up having, like, by the time it's done, depending on the project, like 30 or 40 typed pages, which I consider an outline. I'm not even at first draft level. Like, this is my version of writing an outline. It's just writing the worst, most bloated version of the idea possible. just with every stupid idea I have very poorly written, or if not poorly written, at least like just functional, a very functional essay that would absolutely fail if I were to submit it anywhere. But it's something that's just as much as I can write. Once I do that, that takes me a while. All of these steps take like a long time. I want to point out for me, depending on my time, my attention span, which is getting better. I'm now on meds for ADHD, so maybe that'll make things a little bit better. But the point is that this process will take a while. Like this process with the notebook will take, could take a week. It could take multiple weeks. I mean, it could take a month if I keep like coming up with different ideas. Like that's kind of what I spend the first parts of my outline doing, is just trying to see if this is even like an idea that's worth exploring, or if it's something that I even think I have anything to say about. One of the things I like to do when I'm writing as much as I can is see if I can find like dams in the river, I guess. That's such a stupid way of thinking about it. But like I think about when I'm writing something, if I get to a stopping point, I have to think about like, why have I stopped? Like, what is preventing this from continuing on? And I try to either go backwards to kind of figure out where it became that, if I had some idea, or if I write like 20 pages and go, oh, this doesn't actually make sense, I will just go back to page 1 if I have to. Let me see if I can find possibly an example of that. So we can talk about it. This is absolutely not the good way to do anything. I know I keep saying that, but this feels like it expends a lot of time and energy. But this, again, is what I have found that works for me. Nothing else, just this one thing is what works for me. Give me 1 second. I'm going through my old drive now to see what I still have. Oh, you know what? I think I wrote that one on Google Docs, so I will just open that up real quick. Yeah, let's put that here. Another thing that I will do is I like to go somewhere when I work. When I write, I know that if I write at home, there's going to be too many distractions for me, and I'll end up just playing video games or watching TV instead. So I like to go to a place, whether that's a coffee shop or like a diner of some kind, and just kind of hang out there. Any place that for me has free coffee refills is the perfect place to write. There's a diner kind of close to my place that I like to go to. That's kind of been my go-to, and the people there are super nice, and it has free coffee refills, and they just let me like just stay there for hours with my laptop and just typing. It's super nice. I don't know if I'm taking, I hope I'm not taking advantage of them, but I just really appreciate that they let me do that, and they know me now because I'm there way too often. But I also get a lot done, so you know, the process is working. Still just going to see if I can grab one of my drafts here. Okay, here we go. So this seems to be a more, okay, I'm gonna just set this up so I can transfer over into it. So just give me a second here. Hope whoever is watching this is having a good day. Well, this is helpful. Whoever ends up watching this, I hope this is helpful. I guess I'll do window capture. I feel like I have to relearn OBS every time I open it. Hope I don't have anything embarrassing opened here. Okay, that seems okay. Can we transition to that? Ooh, yeah, I want to do that too. I'll do that. I'm a professional, I swear. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So this is the essay. You'll notice on the top here, it's going to say version 3. One of the things that I do when I'm writing out this portion of it, when I'm actually typing stuff into a computer, is that I will just make continuous copies of my same script. Because I don't want to lose anything or any kind of sequence of ideas, so I'm very afraid of going back and deleting, so I will literally just make as many copies as possible until I get to something that is workable. And again, usually the first draft is more of an outline. It's kind of like a summary of a bunch of different ideas. If I have any jokes or something or whatever, I'll put them in. The actual writing portion, you can kind of skip through here. Yeah, this looks like a more modern or maybe a more final take. Yeah, well, this is definitely one of the later takes. Actually, no, this is actually not one of my final takes. I'm looking at it, trying to see if this is like... This is a version. This is not my final script of the Hell Boss video. But as you can see, this one is fairly organized. Let me see if I can pull up one that's much less organized. This one's 18 pages, however many that is. You can kind of see. Look at all these words that were in the video essay. Let me see real quick if I can do something. Blarg, yes, blarg, yes. Blarg, yes, blarg, yes, blarg, yes, and stuff. Okay. Cool. Go back to my face while I do that, because I don't want to accidentally reveal my info. That'd be pretty embarrassing. Pretty sus. Let's see here. I am going to... That's right. Excuse me. Oh, that's actually very smart of me. Shoot, what does that mean? Let's try this. I'm gonna transition it once I think this is something. You know, because y'all are being so nice and patient. I'm just gonna open up my Matrix one because I think that's a better example, and that's something I'm currently working on, so I at least kind of know where everything is. That one I am writing in doc just because I've had a hard time getting internet to work on the place that I write, so I've been doing this one offline more, so I'm using Word doc. Okay, let me open this up. Let's do... to window capture. For my Word doc. Okay. Yeah, so this what I'm about to show you is a complete... Hi, Meepy! Thanks for coming to the chat. So what I'm showing here is what the super rough versions of my script look like. Why am I frozen in that little photo there? Hold on, let me fix that. Sometimes just God doesn't want me to have nice things. Ah. We're doing it. We're doing it, team. No worries. Amazing. I get anything done. With this work ethic of mine. It's probably good. Is that okay? Yeah, I'm noticing. That is weird. I think I know why it's doing that. Anyway, so what we have here, as you can see by this title, this is version 12, which means that I have made 12 copies of the same video essay, kind of slightly changing or tweaking, cutting things out that I feel. Again, it's very rare that I'll even go back to a previous version of this, but just having it is what makes me feel good. So that makes me right. It says here page 1 of 86. It's a bit of a misnomer because I am kind of copying and rearranging things. I'd say the amount of original words I have written is probably closer to 60 pages, which is also not the final count of what this essay is going to be, not by a long shot. It's going to be somewhere closer to the Fantastic Beasts video essay, which I think was like 24. It's probably going to be around there. But this is where it's a complete mess. I guess you could, like, just look at all this crap. Just whatever this is. Just completely unorganized, completely whatever. Bada bing, and all that. Why is that frozen? I can't even see my face. I don't know if that's frozen for you or just for me looking at the preview screen, but it's very strange. I just gotta refresh it. Oh yeah, that's actually probably what I have to do. Just refresh the screen. I can't even do that, oh my gosh. Refresh, I hate you. Ugh. Ugh, ugh, ugh. Yeah, then they're just gonna make me delete it. Alright. Black screen for a second, or, you know what I mean. Black screen for a second. Video capture. That. I'm so good at this, y'all. I'm like... I'm like the mostest. Alright, so we're back to that. Yeah, so like I said, my writing process is to write as much as I possibly can into first a notebook, usually a cheap one because I don't like expensive ones, they freak me out. And then I will turn that nonsense in the notebook into a Word document, and whatever comes out of that Word document is my outline. That's my, not even first draft or rough draft, that's just what I'm going to talk about. What's interesting and what I like about this phase is that by writing all of these things down and writing every idea I have, I start to see if my ideas even work. So if I'm writing something down or some idea, because you've probably heard this before, the analogy that something is perfect in your head, but then once you write it, it becomes real and thus no longer perfect. That's something I completely believe in, because I will have an idea for something and think, oh my god, it's going to be this, this, and this. And then I write it down and go, that's actually not. I'm already finding reasons as I'm writing it to disprove what I'm writing. I'm already thinking of ways I would counter-argue against this. And I will take all of that into account, and I'll either start from scratch, or I'll try to think of a way to combat whatever it is that I'm talking about. Like if I like for instance the Hell of a Boss video. I'm trying to remember a moment that happened like that. Well, this is kind of, I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but it's kind of similar. I notice sometimes when I first write my video essays, they do kind of turn out to be a little meaner than I really originally want them to. That's maybe one of my bad writing habits, which I think we all kind of have. The important thing is that we kind of just like understand that they happen. We kind of look out for them. I know my very first draft, when it was still just the Hazbin Hotel pilot video essay, was really harsh on furries, which is really funny because I am a furry now, or admitted furry now. So, whoops on that one, but or, you know, I'll try and say something that's maybe a little harsher on the creators than I want to be, because I don't want to make that video. I want to make a video that's really looking at the art and the content itself over anything else. I try to make as specific guidelines and a specific scope as I can, because if I get too broad, then the video might as well just be an infinite amount of time, because you can talk about something forever. It might as well be a billion hours. So I try to make it as focused as I can, and I try to make it as concise as I can. So one thing I'll do is I'll have a very general idea of what I think is happening, and I'll try to explore why I think that's happening in a piece of media until I kind of get to something that I think is a pretty, or hopefully a pretty strong argument. Again, for instance, with the Hell of a Boss video, I knew that a lot of what it was felt very sus to me. A lot of what I was watching was very strange. I was noticing patterns, I was noticing little things, and I wanted to kind of see if I can come up with some kind of argument. More like, I don't think about definitive statements, because that's not really what I think a video essay should be, or at least not the kind of video essays that I write. That it should make an argument. Like, I should be saying something about whatever I'm talking about that another person can argue for or against. Hopefully against, because that's what you kind of want to do. But it needs to be something that is arguable, which means that it can be argued against. So I took a lot of these little ideas and things that I saw in Hell the Boss that I was like, this relationship's kind of weird, this expression is kind of weird, this whatever is kind of weird, and try to like see what's going on. And there I use I guess critical thinking. I use media analysis. I've mentioned multiple times I studied film and media at UC Santa Barbara, and I have a bachelor's in film media studies, so I used the skills that I somehow learned through the haze that was college, and try to think, you know, as broadly as I can about a piece of art from the perspective that I personally like to look at a piece of art, which is kind of just like thinking about if not what is good or bad within a piece of art, but like what the intentions of a piece of art are, or like what an art is trying to say. I don't really like analyses that say this art did something wrong, or look at this mistake, they screwed up here, or this part was great. Like, I don't think that's particularly interesting. I like to analyze media with the thought process that everything is intentional. Whether it's not, whether it's an accident by the team, whether it's something that the author didn't intend or not. I find all of that irrelevant. What I try to do is just look at the art as a single entity, as a single being, and say, what is this trying to say with the information that's given us, with what it's saying? And that's the most important thing to me when I'm writing these video essays. So with something like the Hell of a Boss video, I wanted to stay away from any outside conversation, which I knew even at the time I was writing the Hell of a Boss video, there was quite a lot of discourse, my least favorite word, besides drama discourse, my two least favorite words, around Vivian Medrano and whether or not she was a good or bad person. I didn't want to bring that in because I felt like I could explain my argument about the toxicity in Hell of a Boss without having to bring up the toxicity of the creator. Because I don't find arguments based around a creator to be very effective. Part of my separation of art from the artist is the idea that the artist is just another part of the analysis. Like, an artist is not the entirety of an analysis. So I don't like to have an argument that's like, well, this is what the creator said. Like, to me, that's such a weak argument because it can easily fall apart if somebody says something like, oh, the artist actually said something different. And I just don't like having an argument that can be destroyed that easily. An argument that if somebody just says, actually, they meant this, then you're screwed. I don't like that. That's not a good argument for me. So I tend to not look at what the author's stated intentions are. I do just look at the piece as itself, what I think it's trying to say. And again, that's why I usually say as a disclaimer, I don't think anyone's trying to do anything good or bad. I don't think they're trying to say whatever horrible thing. I argue what I say, that it's homophobic and sexist in the Hell of a Boss video. Yeah, I think I can say that just by looking at the art and how it's being expressed. And that's what I like to do with media. I don't want to do a MatPat like science analysis or just weird lore thing, because that's not like interesting to me. I'm much more interested in how art is put together than than like just what the art is. Like, if there's a painting of a boat, I want to know what that means. Like, to me, it's not just satisfying to say it's a painting of a boat. Like, how much wood would it take to make this boat? Unless there's a political reason or something like that. I try to, that's what I do. I write and come up with an idea, and I already disagree with myself when I say it. I like to think broadly about a piece of art, and I like to kind of just look at what is happening directly. It's kind of the opposite, I think, than what, like, an objectivist critic would say about a piece of art, because the objectivist movement in online media discourse is this idea that there is a single way of looking at a movie, or that there is a right or wrong way with however many caveats and asterisks that particular person puts onto it. But I'm not trying to come up with like a single answer to a video or to a movie, to something. I'm just trying to I'm trying to find some kind of truth, I guess. Not like an answer, like not like a solution. I'm trying to find like a idea or something that I believe that the art itself is expressing. Because that's what's interesting to me, and I think it can be a lot harder, because you have to think about every instance of how the media is composed. So, one of the things I'll do for this is I tend to watch and rewatch whatever media that is that I'm talking about. I think I watched every episode of Hell of a Boss at the time I was writing it, at least like 4 or 5 times all the way through, and then a bunch of little parts halfway throughs and stuff as I was getting details together. Which is why I always think it's funny when people tell me, "Oh, you didn't watch the show, or you're misremembering." I'm like, I literally just watched it like 10 times. Like, I've seen the show, all of this, because I don't want to get anything wrong, right? Like, I keep watching and rewatching because it would be super embarrassing to me if I got something as simple as like what happens in a thing wrong. I mean, nobody's perfect, but I really just don't want to do that, even and especially if it's something that I think makes my script stronger. If it turns out it's based on something that isn't actually there that I thought was there, boy, are the people in the comments gonna let me know. That will be every single comment that I read. So I try to I try to think about like everything that's happening, everything that I am aware of. I don't tend to do like outside research for what I write, because what I'm writing is entirely opinion based. It's entirely based on my own analysis. If I do find something from somewhere, I am always very sure to cite it. Some of these things are just stuff I like remember from when I was studying film, and God knows where I learned that. Can't remember my professor's name or what. I have some of the textbooks. I don't know if they're in there. Maybe I can just start looking through there. But I really think of critical thinking and film analysis is just like a very, to me at least, it's a very personal journey where I'm just kind of sitting with something and thinking about something. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It probably would be better if I read more like peer-reviewed journals and things like that of really fancy writing. Honestly, it would probably be better if I wrote like essays that were like well regarded. I just don't. I'm lazy. That's why I'm making this video essay channel. I'm lazy. I don't want to do research. Research stresses me out. So I do tend to just mostly take it from things that I am observing and I'm seeing, and just thoughts that I have, which is why I tell people it's okay to disagree, because that's all I'm doing is just making something up that I think. Like, I'm just looking at this, I'm making an argument to why I think what I'm talking about is true, and hope for the best. And if you say I disagree, great. But the one thing I want to do is make something that can be disagreed and must be at least argued against. That it takes a little bit more than just saying no, or you know, like, I want to make something that at least like you have to put in a little bit of effort to tell me why I'm wrong about something. And I feel like a lot of arguments, especially ones that come from like the CinemaSins MatPat stuff, is just like, you just say no. Like, if someone says like, what if Five Nights at Freddy's was actually in a time warp? It's like, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's literally anything else. Which is why I tend to stay away from like lore analysis, because to me that's just kind of like fan fictioning in your head, and it's disguised as some kind of analytical ability, when in reality I think it's just you're just making something up that sounds good to you, which is fine. It's cool. Make crap up. Have fun with it. I'm not your mom. Just do what you want. But I will look at a lot of things when I'm writing a video. When I'm trying to prove the points that I have in the statements I have, I try to find very strong examples of what I'm talking about, and I try to look at every aspect of a piece of media in order to express that. For instance, with the Hell of a Boss video, I wanted to show every possible instance and reason why I thought it was sexist and homophobic, and still kind of got it wrong, which I'll explain in a minute. The one thing I would actually change about that video. So with like sexist arguments, it's not just like looking at what happens on page. It's not just like reading the plot, reading what people say about a character. It's how the character is portrayed, how it's shown, how the scene is set up, mise en scène, all the other fancy film study words, and I try to use that as the analysis and not just take a statement at face value, because in a lot of, I've noticed this is even more common now in like modern work, though it's been around forever. A lot of people and a lot of creators think that saying something happens is the same thing as showing that it happens, and I very much disagree with that. So if somebody says, "Oh, this character is complicated," or "This character is cool," or "This character is tough," I'm like, no, I need to see that in the art that you're talking to me about. Which is why I did a lot of commentary on the character of Millie in Hell of a Boss, because to me, like, the show was trying to tell me that the character of Millie was really cool and was like this very strong, independent personality. They were trying to get that across, but in reality, like, when you watch the show, like, Millie has almost no agency to herself. She is entirely devoted in every single possible way to the wants and needs of her husband, and she has no character. And it doesn't matter how awesome and how many times characters of the show say, "Oh, Millie's the biggest badass," she's still, in almost every case, getting knocked out or injured or captured in a way that allows the men in the situation to come up and save the day. So, yeah, you can't just lie to me and tell me what's happening when I'm seeing something else happening on the screen. So that's kind of what I look at, trying to see, like, what is actually happening versus what a piece of art is telling me is happening or wants to happen, and what the art is actually saying. Like, the one thing I would change, and I've said this before, I think on a past live stream, the one thing I would change about the Hell of a Boss video essay is I said that there were a lot of visual or audio. I made some statement that there were a lot of like homophobic jokes in the video, or like a lot of sexist jokes. But in reality, I look back and I realized that there wasn't actually a lot of homophobic jokes. And what I was actually centering on was a general feel of like homophobia within it, and I realized it would have been more accurate for me to say that how LGBT relationships are shown and presented is homophobic in its portrayal of stereotypes, as opposed to just anybody calling somebody else gay as a slur, which is not as common, if really common at all, as I thought when I was watching it. And sometimes you gotta be careful of that too. Like, something feels true, but then you look back and you go, oh, it's actually not. Which, the good thing is that when you discover things like that, you tend to get a better video essay. Right? I think you get a better video essay. When you're able to notice those things and either overcome them, create solutions to them, or if you have to restart your essay, that's good. Like, it sucks, but you're also going to get a better essay when you're done with it. I tend to write in a very conversational way. Like, my video essays are like kind of half essay, half script. I write them with the knowledge, knowing that I'm going to be saying these out loud in front of a camera. So I will write it in a way that I imagine I would say it with my particular speech patterns. I try to make little notes about like where I would pause, or if I want to use like or actually, like stuff that you would never put into a real video essay, a real essay, but because I'm saying it out loud, I'm trying to inject a personality into it. I'll kind of think about word choice in that sense. So I try to talk in the I try to write in the way that I talk with these video essays, which leads to another one of my problems, in that I find out very quickly that I don't talk great. Or I my own idiosyncrasies, whatever. Whatever. Why are you, just whatever. I find out that I'm not always doing everything correctly, so I will get grammar notes when I give my essays to my friends to check out, and I have to kind of fix that, because I realize I kind of am just using tenses, for instance. I keep misusing tenses because I just say whatever I say, and it's not always correct grammarly. Look at all these terrible words and ways of saying them that I'm using. This is awful. But I also think that does at least kind of create a more casual vibe. Like, I want to come across as myself, I guess. Like, I want to find a way of presenting the information that feels honest to who I am as a person. I, of course, have people that I look at and that I admire when it comes to video essays. Jacob Geller is probably my favorite video essayist working today. I also like the style of Big Joel, who is really good at... I find that he's really good at, like, saying very controversial stuff in a way that's, like, very inviting. So I do find myself sometimes writing something in a way that, like, I know he would probably say in one of his videos, which you try to avoid. You try to make that into kind of your own thing. But I do kind of see myself going, does that mean that it's like this? Well, no, I actually, like, try to be, like, not just, like, telling somebody to screw off, being a little bit more kind with it and kind of building up the controversial thing you're about to say, which is something I think Big Joel does really well. So I try to take a little bit of I try to emulate that a little bit in my own way. I try to go for a tone that I think is both serious and fun. I don't want it to be, like, super comedic, even though, like, I have a background in stand-up comedy and all these other things. I want to create something that somebody will look at it and see it and be like, this is interesting. Like, I want to present information in a way that I hope is engaging while also being hopefully not dumb. What I'm saying. Some of that I got from my my co-collaborator on the first video essay project technically I worked on, which was something called Remain Seated with Chris Nebergall, which we did, God, a long time ago, many, many years ago. And that was a learning process. Those are technically the first video essays I put together. I didn't write those video essays. That was all Chris, who was also the narrator, and I thought he always sounded very intelligent, so I kind of wanted to see if I could do that. Turns out we both thought the other one was the better speaker, because grass is always greener, I guess. But that kind of taught me a way of speaking that I thought was something that was, like, accurate to me, that I could just, like, be serious when I wanted to be serious, be funny when I wanted to be funny, that I didn't have to, like, force an emotion or a tone, that I could just do what I felt was right in a situation. If that situation is serious, I'm gonna be serious. If the situation feels like it should be not, it's not, etc., etc. I'm a video editor for a living, so I do, I'm putting together stuff from large amounts of footage as a job. And when you have been doing it as long as I have, you kind of start to get a sense of how things are going to be put together before it even gets to the editing bay. So when I'm writing something, I am kind of thinking about always the flow of what I'm writing. So that the final version, I'm always thinking, like, almost in like seconds and beats, like in my head, like, okay, this is gonna happen, this is gonna say this. And this is when I take my gigantic monstrosity of whatever it is that I've written and I cut like half of it, if not more. So if I write like 50 pages of something, like 50 pages of unique written information, I will cut like half of that. Just because it's just what it is. Like, I find the things that I don't like or I don't think are as interesting or don't work for this. And when I end up putting it all together, it ends up being really short. Like when I wrote the Wizarding World, I thought it was gonna be like an hour and a half, judging by like how I was writing and how much I was writing. But once I kind of started to edit it and put it all together, it ended up being like not that much longer than my Hell of a Boss video. I think that one ended up being like 24 pages when I was all done. I thought it was gonna be something closer to like 30 or something, but you know, it just for me, it's the flow and the presentation are kind of the most important. If there's something I really want to put in there, I won't kill my darlings. I don't care. It's just literally like, it's just me making a video. I don't owe myself to anybody. I'm not responsible for a company or anyone's paycheck. So if there's something that I want to put in that I think is like not maybe the most necessary, but I like it, it's gonna go in. Who cares? But usually I'm pretty good about self-policing myself with unnecessary information, just because I hate that. Maybe it's my ADHD. I get bored really easily, so I tend to write things with the perspective of trying to keep somebody like me engaged at all times. Which is still not even as short of attention span as I guess Zoomers and Alphas have, according to the jokes and memes. But I try to put in things that I like into a video. I try to be as kind as I can. I will put in jokes about like art, you know, from time to time. I don't want to make fun of the artists. I don't want to call out the creators. Again, I really just want to focus on the work itself. And as long as I'm doing that, then the next step is just to see if what I'm writing is actually entertaining. So when I finally get to a first draft, which is usually I've written like 80 pages to get to a first draft, I've thought so hard about what I'm writing that I get really nervous giving the first draft to people to read, because at this point I've already gone through like 12 revisions just through my own internal grading and editing process. So I get a little nervous when I hand it out to other people. But this is also the most important. If you can, obviously it is a privileged stance to even have somebody that you can give a piece of art to, let alone somebody that you know will fairly criticize it in a way that's beneficial. But if you do and you have those people, like really try to do it. Even if you got to do like share for share. Say like, hey, I'll read your thing if you read my thing. Like, it's fine. We all kind of get a little better. And I now have a good amount of people that I have collaborated with and that I work with and trust, that I feel confident that if I give them something that I've written, like a video essay draft or something, that they will come back to me with a good faith argument with the goal of making whatever I'm doing the best of my vision as possible. Because when you're let's talk about grading other people's stuff. I'm thirsty. When I've given my stuff out to friends or colleagues to review and give me points on, I usually notice I usually get one of two kinds of criticisms. One, I will get a good faith, here's what I think you could do better criticism, that's the best case scenario, is you get somebody that really wants to make, really understands what you're trying to say and wants to make the best version of what you're trying to say as possible. But sometimes you get the other thing, which is a reader giving you criticism that doesn't necessarily make what you're doing better, but it's what the reader themselves would do. And these are very different things, because when it comes to art, there are 1 quadrillion, infinite bazillion ways to make something. So if somebody is just not liking something because it's not something that they would do, that's not exactly helpful, because what their changes are going to do is not necessarily make what you're writing better. It might to some people or not, but it's not going to be making your vision better. It's going to be making your vision closer to what the reader's vision is. And I've had people in my life that have given me tips that are like, you should do this. And I realize, oh, that's just something that they like to do. So now when I read things and when I give my things out to read, I do the same thing that I do in a video essay. I try to be like, what is the intent? What's the purpose of this media that I'm reading? What's the purpose of this script? What's the tone? Like, what do I think this is trying to do? And then I try to help make it the best version of this. I may read stuff that I would never do personally, but that's not important. I don't talk about that, because that's not the point. I'm not trying to make something closer to what I would do. I'm trying to make the person who is writing the thing, I'm trying to make the writing fit the person's goals, or what I think the person's goals, and I'll usually talk to the writer, be like, what are you trying to do? Like, what are your intentions? And try to be like, okay, let's try to get let's try to get the best version of your idea as possible. And that's what we do. I think that's the best way to critique something. And that's also how I look at movies, and that's also how I analyze media. Like, when I'm watching something, like in a movie theater, or if I'm thinking about even just doing like a review on like a letterbox or something, I tend to do what Siskel and Ebert have said multiple times in how they approach film reviews, which is you kind of try to figure out what the intentions of the film are. Like, what kind of movie is this trying to be? Like, you don't grade a horror movie to the same criteria as you would a romantic comedy, because they're trying to do completely separate things. But what you can do is look at what the individual piece of art is trying to accomplish, and you try to figure out if it does that job as well as it can. So when I'm looking at any kind of piece of media for what I'm writing, my number one thing is trying to figure out what is the intention. Like, what is this trying to be? What is the art trying to do? And once I establish that, which could be its own journey, just trying to figure out like what the point of a piece of art is, the next step is to try to figure out if it's doing it as best as it can. If it's good at doing the thing that I believe it's trying to do. And if the answer is yes, that's great. If the answer is no, that sucks. If the answer is somewhere in between, it's boring. but generally, it's all kind of just you. It's all kind of just vibes. There's no right or wrong way of looking at this. If somebody else thinks that the intention is this, but they did it well, then that's also valid. There's no like right or wrong ways of looking at art. So when I write something, when I'm making a video essay about something, I first try to establish what I think the film is trying to say. Sometimes that's honestly enough for a video essay if you have something interesting as an answer to that. Like, if you think a piece of media is saying something that like no one else has thought of before that's written about this, then that's kind of amazing. That's kind of like that's the golden egg, your goose, I guess. Weird analogies we're using. And that's a lot of times, that's how a lot of my video essays started. It's where I'll kind of look at something and go, oh, I think this is what it's trying to say, and I'll use that as a jumping off point. And usually when I'm writing just this full analysis of whatever the fuck I'm trying to talk about, I end up discovering more things as I write and as I look at it. Because I am always kind of thinking and rethinking. I'm writing stuff down. I'm going from like my first impressions of a thing that I watch to trying to figure out why I feel a certain way. Generally, a art has to make me feel a certain way in order for me to even want to write about it. I need to get some emotion, or something has to happen that kind of sparks something in my brain that goes, oh, okay, what's going on there? And I kind of analyze that, and then I'll come up with an argument of why, you know, that may, or a lot of my video essays are just me trying to figure out why I felt a certain way or why I had a certain reaction to something when it comes to media. And usually through that process, I end up discovering other things as I'm trying to figure out that feeling. Like, as I'm trying to figure out what I think the film is trying to say, I'm also end up discovering things like, oh, wow, I didn't think about this, or this one thing I took for granted. Now I'm looking at it a whole new light because I've kind of done this other work on it. So you kind of just kind of keep digging into it until you get to what is hopefully a truth, not the truth, because I don't think there's any solutions to art. It's not a math problem, but you find a truth in the art. For the Hell of a Boss video, that truth that I found, or one of the truths that I found for me, was that I thought it was a show about power, that it was a show about how those at a higher standing in the society of the demon world had more, were shown more positively and were given much more forgiveness by the art itself than people that weren't. And that's not something anybody intended. There was no author. I'm, again, positive Vivian Madron didn't sit down and say, this is how I'm going to write it. It's just what happened. It's just when you put all of these things like together, these are the results. And usually, God, I hate looking at this thing from like, because I'm kind of doing it like mirrored. So I'm trying to figure out like where that hair is that's all wet on my neck. I don't know why I'm sweating. It's kind of warm today. But I think like that is, for me, what makes writing video essays fun. And it can be a long process. Like this new video I'm working on, which is going to be on The Matrix, and talks about something that is going to piss a lot of people off. But sometimes, hey, sometimes you know you're going to be in the algorithm's good graces, and you just kind of embrace it. I don't try to, but it's like, God, this one, maybe the computers will like it. It probably will, because whatever. But usually my video essays take a while because I just am lazy and I don't write. But when I do sit down and write and start to work on it, I do find it can take months or like a long time to really get to the point of something, because I will often go into something and say, I think this is happening, and then it'll just keep getting more and more refined. Sometimes I will discover I got something wrong and change course, but just as common, I'll find an even stronger version of that argument, or I'll see something else in media that makes me think differently, or I'll read something just out in the wild, or I'll experience something else and I'll be, oh my God, now I think differently about this other thing that I was writing with regards to this and this. And that just kind of keeps happening forever until you decide that it's good enough, or you get tired of it. You're just like, I just want to get it done. That's kind of the worst part of my video essays, is by the end of it, I'm like, I just need to get this done. But I don't know. I still try my best to make them as good as I can. But yeah, I think that's why I find a lot of the criticism against my work very interesting, because they are always kind of around this idea that I got something just so completely wrong, or I got something like so completely dumb, honestly, or I just totally misread something. This idea that I didn't like spend a month thinking and rethinking everything that I say, like you can say you disagree, which I hope you do, but to say that, like, I just wasn't correct or I didn't do the work is kind of hilarious to me, because that's all I did was work, is try to figure out what I wanted to say. And it sometimes would take me writing 80 pages to get 20 pages of usable material. And that's just kind of how my brain works. But it's a very long, very it's not a very good way of writing, because it takes a long time, and it causes an excess of energy and labor that would probably be shorter if I did know how to do outlines and stuff good, like my grade school teachers taught me. But I just have never found that those work for me personally. So I found that this very long, overly excessive, long way of writing is the one that gets me to have something done. And in the end of the day, that's what matters. So with this new video I'm working on, The Matrix, I think I've watched every movie again, like 3 or 4 times, even the bad ones. Just, to me, all the ones after the first one. And I, taken all these notes, I've written things down, and I've written and rewritten, and I just keep kind of looking and going back into what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to figure out. And I've gone through so many ideas, like this idea, which really just started as, like, I was thinking that the trans allegory of The Matrix, which has become popular recently in online spaces, is a problematic allegory if taken at face value, but it's kind of evolved from that into all these other things that I want to talk about as well, because it's now becoming a, like, analysis on, like, how people think, or how, like, society kind of teaches us to look at the world. Which, yeah, I think a lot of my videos do kind of go back to, like, capitalism and hierarchies and things like that, because that is, like, the whole world. I'm not here saying, what's today's Marxist video going to look like? It's just, that is just kind of what it is. And when you do kind of get to the end of something, you do realize, oh, it's hierarchy. It's neoliberalism. It's whatever you want to say it is. It's these things that just kind of keep happening over and over, which is why when people say art isn't political, it's so insane to me, because of course it is. It all kind of, not only is it political, it kind of keeps going into the same couple of political ideas and these same kind of concepts. Again, like with Hell of a Boss, I end with this hierarchy argument, because I say at the end, very controversially, that I think it's all about power, that I think that the characters become more prominent as they become more selfish, as they become more, as they become better at performing violence and subjugating other people. They become more popular. Like when somebody puts down somebody, that gives them the ability to rise up. Because I'm just looking at what keeps happening, and it's very arguable. Like, you can say it's something else. Yeah, like, that's the point of an argument, and that's what I try to write. That's a writing tip for everybody. Don't write something that can't be argued against. Like, don't just write what is known as, like, a God argument, where it's something that can't be proven or disproven, because those aren't interesting. They're just not good. Even though I feels like there's a lot of videos like that online. I mentioned like the Matt Pat stuff before. Those aren't interesting arguments because you can't really argue against them, because it's all just like theoretical. It's all kind of slightly fan fiction-y, even in the best cases. So you can't really disprove whether or not, I don't know, SpongeBob is adopted, which is one of the ones I saw, and that's so insane that there was a Matt Pet video about that. What if SpongeBob was adopted? Here's me using science. It's like, okay, I can't prove or disprove what you're saying. It's just not interesting. But if you make enough of a statement where someone can say, I think this is what's happening, then you've done a good job. If you make something that makes somebody want to argue against you, then you have written a good video. But again, just try to prove your point as best as you can. so that if somebody is trying to say I disagree, they can't just say I disagree. They have to say why they disagree. They have to, it has to be more than just like, I don't like this, or I disagree with this. At least if that person's goal is to take you down, or whatever horrible, stupid way of talking on the internet that we do to each other. Because disagreeing and going on with your day is fine. That's like the most normal way you can look at a piece of media. And a piece of media analysis is you go, oh, that's interesting, and walk away. But if somebody wants to tell you that you're a tranny faggot like they do to me, like somehow that has something to do with why they didn't like my video essay or something, then you need at least to say something that's a little bit stronger than, or you know, like, or it could be something else. Like, yeah, well, like what? Like, what else could it be? I guess you could do that with the map patch stuff too. No, forget all that stuff. Erase that last 20 minutes I said. That's what I usually say to comments. If I see a comment of somebody saying something along those lines, I'll go like, oh, then what do you like? What do you think is happening? Like, what's your take on this? And I usually don't get a response. Usually I just get somebody telling me to screw off. So yeah, that's kind of the writing process. I do that. I start with a notebook, like I said. Start with one of these. I try to make the environment that I'm in as calming as possible, or I try to make an environment that I know I like to write in. Like I said before, diners, cafes, coffee shops. I like places that have low music volume. I tend to really like white noise, like the hustle and bustle of like a diner, for instance. I find very calming, and it helps me focus. As opposed to like listening to music, because when I listen to music, I end up just kind of singing along or thinking about the song that I'm listening to, and I get distracted. So for me, again, personally, everyone's got their own way of doing it. For me, I like white noise. I like just the sounds of the environment, because that allows me to kind of get into the zone. So I started taking ADHD pills. That's been helping. Yeah, that option as a writer. That's probably not something I should say online. Yeah, once you kind of get a routine, routines are good too. That's the hardest thing for me to do. But if you are able to make a routine, that's half the work, if not more. A routine of like what you do every day and all that stuff. It's basically impossible if you've got, you know, if you've got my neurodivergency, any kind of routine, especially when you're in a bit of a job slump like I am right now, is very, very difficult. But I do think that is helpful in all of this. And then from there, once I've done with the notebook writing, I move on to the computer typing, which is kind of just like a fancier version of the notebook writing for initially, where I'm just putting these bullet points I have into sentences, putting it into a vague shape and going, that's my outline. That's usually 1 billion pages. I keep working on it. I keep rewriting it. I keep putting things together. I keep finding better ways of saying something. I usually am talking with my friends about my thoughts, and they'll be like, I like that, or I don't like that, and then I'll change whatever, depending on how I feel about things. And that's just kind of what we all do for each other's work. It's not really, it's kind of how collaboration should be, I think, with your with your peers when it comes to this kind of stuff. Eventually I'll get to something that I will call a first draft, which is maybe a month's worth of work. Like, I'm not even at the first draft stage of my Matrix video essay, and I feel like I've been working on it for at least like a full, like putting all the hours together, like a full month's worth of hours, and I'm not even at the first draft yet. That's just how I write. But once I get to the first draft, that's where I feel like I am finally pretty close to something that I will be able to film. And yeah, I take that first draft, I give it to people to check out. I kind of keep reading it. I try to read it in a way that I know I'm going to say it. I try to think about the pacing. If I'm saying something and I get to a point that to me feels off or kind of awkward or stop, or it brings me to a stopping point or a tone shift, or like, yeah, if I get to like these barriers, I try to fix them, because to me, and this is the cheesiest thing I'm going to say, I feel like art writing it, like I don't think of things with like an act or a part structure. I think it should just flow. To me, the most important thing for my writing is that it has to flow like a river. It has to just kind of keep moving. It has to keep having intention. There has to be a purpose to what's going on, even if that purpose is no purpose. Like, it has to have, it always has to be moving. It always has to be going somewhere. And that's just how I like to write anything. It's how I like to create anything, is just that it's moving. I don't think about parts or conclusions until like later, usually. But that is eventually the point where you do get to a conclusion that fits with what you're talking about. You kind of check everything to make sure that you actually got to this conclusion in a way that makes sense, that you're not just saying things for the sake of saying them, that it is all leading to something. You try to trim as much fat as you can off of what you're writing, which is again why I tend to write a lot and then cut it down to as small as possible. Some people will write short and then add more. My policy is to write too much and then keep cutting in and cutting in until I get to something that I like. This is how I do it. I do it like a video editor, or a bad video editor, maybe. Nah, I do okay. Just don't. My bosses seem to like the work I do. And that's it. Until you just do that until you get what I call a shooting script, which is just a video essay in its best written form. I'll include little notes if I think of like something I'm gonna do later. The benefit of doing everything on your own is that you only have to answer to yourself, so all the information you give yourself is only for yourself. So I don't put together like a shot script, or I don't put together things that I would if I was in a collaborative environment with multiple people. Because it's just me, I just do a couple little notes that I know I'm going to look back at. And I will say it. I usually will look into some form of a screen as a teleprompter. For the Wizarding World video, I actually use that TV that's behind me as the teleprompter. And I angled the camera in a way that made it look like I was just looking into the camera, but I was actually looking at the TV behind the camera. And I was very satisfied with the effect, that it didn't look like I was just looking at notes the whole time. I don't know if I'm going to do that again for The Matrix. I might try something else. If I think of any flourishes, any kind of special camera things I want to do, I'll make a little note of it. And then usually just kind of find it in the editing room after that, which is going to be another video. But yeah, that is how I write a video essay. I hope this has been helpful to everyone that's watched it. I've seen a lot of people give a lot of advice for how to be creative and how to make things, not just video essays, but all kinds of art. And I find most of the advice to be pretty trash, honestly. I think the only things you got to do is just figure out what gets you to write, even if you're writing something completely shit and you know it's shit. You just got to do it. You just got to figure out what makes you write. And then you just got to keep writing a bunch of crap until something good comes out, or something that is interesting to you. Don't write for an algorithm or what you think is going to be popular, because you can't predict those things. You might think you can predict those things, but you really can't. And if something that you work on purely because you think it's going to get clicks does not end up getting clicks, you're going to feel twice as bad than if something you put passion into also just didn't get clicks. So you might as well just do what you like. I think it's a Jim Carrey quote, something like that. figure out what you want to do. Figure out what you want to write. It might be something scary. It might be something different. It might be just the same that everyone else is doing. But as long as it's something that you are like and you passionate about, just do it. Just keep doing it until you hate yourself. You hate everybody. You know, like it's like playing an instrument. You know, I started playing guitar when I was 15. I've been playing for 20 years now. People are like, oh, you're so good. It's like, yeah, because I was shit for like many years. I was awful at guitar for a long time until I got okay. And now I'm like, okay at guitar. So just make your thing. Who cares if people like it or not? Just have fun. Don't do something with the idea that if I have to do this, or I'm not going to be able to do this, or I need to make money to do this, or because you're not. Like, I'm not going to make money. It'd be great if I made some money at doing this, but it's just probably not going to happen. So I just kind of make what I want. I enjoy what I do. I put effort into it. I keep myself open, I guess, to opportunities in case they do happen. So that's all you can kind of do. And, just do what you like. Don't make something that you hate. I think the worst case scenario is you make something that you hate and it gets successful, because then you have to do that for the rest of your life, which sounds like torture to me. So just make the things that you like and hope that those do well, because if you're making something that you hate and that does well, sure, it made you some money, but you're gonna be miserable. Or at least, like, I mean, I'm not going to tell somebody rich who's making something that they don't like how to live their life. That sounds like a better life than mine. No, just be happy. What am I even fucking talking about anymore? This went way over the rails. But yeah, I hope this was educational to some degree. I hope this gives you a better sense of how I approach media analysis, and if something I said sparks something in you to do something that you like, that'd be amazing. That's great. It's amazing. If not, hey, you kind of get my shit a little bit better. Yeah, like, share and subscribe. Check out my Patreon, also madelinemaye. You know, throw a couple of bucks my way. Doesn't hurt. Not expecting it, but it would be nice. And yeah, the next video, I'm kind of giving up on saying time, but I do want at least it to be known that I am actively working on it, and I think it's coming along really well. I'm pretty proud of a lot of the stuff that I'm writing, which I don't normally say, so I hope other people... I like it. I think it's coming out good, so I hope other people like it too when it does eventually release. Whenever it does release. So, yeah. Thank you all so much for checking this out, and I will see you in the movies. Probably not. It's not a movie. This is a YouTube stream. Bye.